Immigration front and center. The Supreme Court begins hearing debate on the Biden administration's deportation policies. Plus, thrills are on the menu. I speak with the A-list cast to learn more about the film. And the stakes couldn't be higher. What Senator Warnock is doing to rally voters in Georgia. That's coming up on Advocate Today. Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. The U.S. Supreme Court Counsel says Justice Samuel Alito didn't violate ethics standards in a 2014 decision. The letter comes in response to questions from congressional Democrats about allegations that Alito leaked the Hobby Lobby decision before it was released. The case focused on religious liberty and contraceptives. The Supreme Court Counsel repeated Justice Alito's assertion that neither he nor his wife told a guest at his home years ago about the decision in the Hobby Lobby case. The Times story comes in the wake of the leak earlier this year of the draft decision in the Dobbs case that overturned Roe v. Wade. The conservative-led Supreme Court is currently in session, and the justices are questioning the Biden administration's ability to prioritize which non-citizens are deported. Two Republican state attorneys general claim the Department of Homeland Security is bypassing federal immigration law. This challenge comes from Texas and Louisiana. The crux of the matter is a 2021 memo from Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The document defined the parameters for the arrest, detention, and deportation of people in the U.S. illegally. A new film promises to satisfy all of your cravings and then some. The menu features an A-list cast and a fascinating take on foodies and the restaurant industry, all while having you guess what happens next. I connected with the stars about what moviegoers can expect to see. I would love to say that I really enjoyed the film, and also just what a pleasure it is to chat with you, such an icon for LGBTQ plus people. So first, I wanted to just ask you, the film is such a brilliant excoriation of privilege and class and the idea of food as rarefied rather than sustenance. And I wonder if you talk a little bit about
that was brilliant what you just said. I am feeling that. An excoriation of privilege and class. And food not as sustenance. But I mean, that's just...
Well, thank you.
Wow.
But I wonder if you would talk a little bit about how your character fits into all of that.
Well, Anne and her husband Richard think of themselves as the premier class, the A-list, the in crowd, the ones who are superior to everyone else because they can get into this restaurant. So that's the class dynamic that you're talking about. But the sorrow in their dynamic and the sadness in their relating is devastating. And so as you watch this film, you think these people are one way. You think, we know those people. We've seen that couple before. You begin to understand that this is a whole surface level, and what's underneath is what really is making this film sizzle.
There's a scene in the film where the men are sent running to kind of atone for their sexual transgressions or treatment of women, and then the women go in and have the next course. Would you talk a little bit about shooting that scene with this kind of sorority of incredible actors?
Oh God, it was glorious because of course they had sent the men out. And it wasn't that they had sent the men out, but it was the gathering of the women. And what happens in that dynamic is that we are given food that the men are not given.
Yeah.
We are informed of something by one of the chefs that we have privileged information. And there is a moment between Anya and myself that is a recognition and a truth-telling that happens within literally 2 lines, maybe 3 words. And there is what becomes, and I won't completely give it away, but a level of rapprochement that only can happen within the structure of that kind of scene. And it was so glorious to do, because not only was it, I mean, we were all really close, but not only was it funny, but it carried a kind of depth and understanding of who we were as women that you see in this movie that not everybody's talking about. So I'm very delighted that you brought that up.
Anya, your character is really important. She's the pivotal piece of this film, really, because Chef has this idea of us versus them, and you're with the service industry by virtue of your being there. And I wonder if you would talk a little bit about how the film investigates class in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Chef Slowik is on a revenge war-path. And I mean, Mark described me, or Margot the other day, as a fly in the ointment, which should be insulting, and yet I think it's like pretty accurate in terms of the way that Chef feels about her. The whole thing with the haves and the have-nots is, for the have-nots, there's a massive resentment. Specifically in this industry, it's because they're pouring so much love into what they do, and the haves in this particular film are so blinded by their entire privilege and they're not there for the right reasons. They're there to boast. They're there to flaunt their privilege to other people. They're not there to enjoy the food.
I wonder, Nick, if you would talk a little bit about how some of that is seen through your character, who's a foodie who can't, when it comes down to it, really doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, Tyler is someone who's so desperate to be accepted into that world, and I think in many ways he's lonely, and he gets kind of slightly brainwashed into this cult somewhat by Chef Slowik. And this is probably, for him, it's probably a restaurant that he's been wanting to go to for years and years and years. He's saved up. This is the biggest night of his life, and he's prepared meticulously in terms of, like, he knows what all the ingredients are. He knows exactly how things are made, all the gadgets in the kitchen. But then gradually, even though this is like the most important night of his life, it just gradually starts to unravel and get picked apart by Chef Slowik and by Margot not playing her part and being the perfect date. And so it all crumbles around him, essentially.
Food is a necessity for everyone. Everyone needs food. And yet, in this context, it's been elevated to such a degree that only a certain class of people can have this kind of food. And it's become so out of touch for the masses that I thought that was so smart to deliver this message on the back of dining, because we all have to eat. And so even our most basic necessity can be commodified. It can be, capitalized to this degree where, it's like, we all got to do it, but some people can do it better. And so I thought that was really interesting. And, recently, in recent years, the political climate being what it is, there's been, this increased call, like, to eat the rich, right? And it is about that, but it also is about how we consume.
Yeah, I mean, the whole movie is kind of about elitism and snobbery, keeping people out. It's about keeping people out. We're in a select bubble. We're special. We're unique. We're better than everybody else, and keeping the others out. And it's the same thing with art. There's a lot of artists who think they're better than everybody else, and they don't want to mix with the mediocre artists who taint your art and might contaminate you, make you mediocre.
Thanks again to the cast for speaking with me. The menu is in theaters now. And before we let you go, Georgia's runoff election is underway between incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker. This election will decide if Democrats gain a majority in the Senate. One music superstar is hoping to turn the tide in Georgia with a little music and positive vibes. Senator Warnock recently enlisted musician Dave Matthews for a rally. The senator and musician talked about how this election can determine Georgia's fate for years to come. If Herschel Walker prevails, the Senate will be evenly split once again, with the tie-breaking vote going to Vice President Kamala Harris. That's all the time we have for this episode. You can now visit theadvocatechannel.com for more content and coverage. The Advocate Channel is also available now wherever and however you stream. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. I'll see you next time.